This video gives an overview of the Samsung S24D390HL's OSD on-screen display menu system. The menu is controlled by this touch-sensitive area here at the bottom of the monitor. I know some people don't like touch-sensitive controls, but they're not the worst touch-sensitive controls I've come across. They're not the best either. They're fairly responsive. They do the job. So the first button there allows you to access the main menu. The second button allows you to activate the game mode of the monitor, which I'll talk about a little bit later. The third button along allows you to adjust the volume. This monitor doesn't actually have integrated speakers, but it does have an audio output, and that adjusts the volume of that. And there's also a source select button, which allows you to select either HDMI or VGA, so an entire two different inputs to choose from there. So the main menu system's been revamped a bit by Samsung for their 2014 models. It's split into 5 main sections, 5 main sub-menus. So there's picture, colour, menu settings, setup and reset, and information. If you go into one of the sub-menus, there's a little sort of caption to the right of all of the settings which explains what each thing does, which is quite useful if you're not sure about something. The picture menu gives you access to your main controls, your brightness, contrast and sharpness. And Samsung have been give you quite good flexibility with the sharpness controls. Personally, I like to leave things at default. I'm quite happy with the default 60 sharpness, but you can adjust this between 0 and 100 in increments of 3, which is quite good for people who like to tweak that sort of thing. You can activate the game mode, and it says here optimizes image settings for playing games. Now, as we say in the review, it's really debatable whether it optimizes anything. I'll tell you exactly what it does do. Once you activate this, it might not be clear on the video, but it hugely oversaturates colours, completely kills the shade variety, and also gives excessive sharpness to everything. And to add insult to injury, Samsung kill the sharpness control of the monitor, so you can't actually do anything about that. And it also blocks off the colour controls. There are also Samsung's Magic Bright presets, which you can play around with if you're not using the game mode. There are 4 main ones there, and they're all discussed in the review, except for the cinema mode, which basically I don't talk about because I just don't like it very much. It's pretty much a bit like a slightly weaker version of the game mode. It oversaturates stuff, it crushes shade variety, and it makes things very sharp. Not in a good way. And again, you can't adjust the sharpness. Speaking of sharpness, there's a magic upscale feature on this monitor, which basically just boosts the sharpness by a preset amount. And if you're running the native resolution of the monitor, it's not really much use, but it might be able to help if you're viewing sort of lower resolution content. And again, this is not something that's image size. This isn't something that will have any effect when you're running the monitor in its native resolution. But with lower resolutions, it can either stretch to fit the screen or give you black borders, depending on your preferences. There's an HDMI black level setting, which again is discussed in the calibration section of the review, and that is quite a useful setting to have. Another thing that's discussed in the review is the response time setting. And there are a few things greyed out there because they're only available if you're using a VGA connection, an analog connection. With a digital connection like HDMI, it's all optimised for you, so you don't have to worry about any of that. So next is the colour submenu, which is quite aptly named because it allows you to change the colour channels. You can also select a preset colour tone if you prefer, and we talk about some of these in the review as well. For example, warm 2, which we've likened to a reading mode or a low blue light setting because it makes the image appear warmer and it's quite relaxing on the eyes, especially in the evening. So that's quite a nice little setting to have there. There's a gamma setting which you can adjust between one of 3 modes, and it says on the description there, adjust the middle level of luminance. So basically what that means is it doesn't have any effect on the contrast of the monitor, it doesn't do anything to pure black, it doesn't do anything to pure white, but the shades in between, it adjusts the relative brightness of each shade. There are you can adjust the menu settings as well. You can adjust the language, which isn't something I'm going to be touching there, and you can change the on-screen position of the OSD, both horizontally and vertically, and you can adjust how long the OSD is displayed for before it disappears. And I've got that set to 200 seconds just so it doesn't disappear on me when I'm trying to talk about things, but by default it's set to 20 seconds, I believe. So you can set that to 5 seconds if you're really confident, 10 seconds, 20 or 200. There's also a little transparency effect on the menu here. It's kind of subtle, but you can see the desktop background through the OSD there, which it's on by default, but if it bothers you for whatever reason, you can turn it off. There's a setup and reset section, which allows you to reset all of the settings to factory defaults. There's an eco-saving mode, which is a bit misleading really, because here it says 50%, 75%, so you might think that by selecting 75% that would give you a maximum reduction in energy, maximum energy saving, but actually that corresponds to the brightness that the monitor's set to, so that 75% brightness uses more energy than 50% brightness. There's an off timer setting, which is sort of self-explanatory, but it basically just sends the screen onto standby after a certain amount of time. So you can set that between 1 and 23 hours if you'd like. There's a setting which can be quite useful, not for PC users again, but for maybe some games consoles or Blu-ray players, other devices like that connected by HDMI. So you can select an AV mode rather than PC. And the last sub-menu there's nothing really you can change here, it's just giving you some basic information, just reminding you that this is a 60Hz monitor and it's got a 1920 by 1080 resolution, which is its optimal mode. And I think that's about it really. So there you have it, that's the menu system of the Samsung S24D390HL.